In the small town of Millfield, a family of 4 lived in a cozy home on the edge of a dense forest. John, the father, worked long hours at the local factory, while his wife, Emily, stayed at home with their 2 children, James and Lily. Life was simple but happy, until one day, tragedy struck. It was a dark and stormy night when Emily heard a knock on the door. She opened it to find a stranger standing outside, drenched in rain. He claimed to be lost and asked for shelter for the night. Emily, being the kind-hearted person she was, invited him in and offered him a warm meal. As the night wore on, Emily began to feel uneasy around the stranger. He seemed to be eyeing her with a sinister gaze, and his behavior was increasingly erratic. She tried to ignore her instincts, but when the stranger made a move on her, she fought back with all her might. In the struggle, the stranger fell and hit his head on the corner of the coffee table. Emily was horrified to find that he was dead. She knew she had to do something, so she called John at work and told him what had happened. They decided to bury the body in the forest and never speak of it again. However, things quickly took a turn for the worse. Emily started experiencing strange occurrences in the house. Doors would slam shut on their own, objects would move mysteriously, and she would hear whispers in the night. She tried to rationalize it as her imagination, but deep down, she knew something wasn't right. One night, she woke up to find the stranger standing at the foot of her bed. She screamed, waking up John and the children. They searched the house but found no trace of the stranger. Emily was convinced that his spirit was haunting the house, seeking revenge for his death. As the days went on, the haunting grew more intense. The family became increasingly paranoid and delusional, and their relationships with each other started to unravel. John became distant and cold, while Emily struggled to hold on to her sanity. One day, James and Lily disappeared without a trace. The family searched the house and the surrounding woods, but they were nowhere to be found. Emily was consumed with grief and guilt, convinced that the stranger's spirit had taken her children as revenge for his death. In a desperate attempt to save her family, Emily turned to a local priest for help. He performed an exorcism on the house, but it only seemed to make things worse. The haunting became more intense, and Emily could feel the stranger's presence all around her. In the final, tragic climax, Emily realized that the only way to end the haunting was to confront the stranger's spirit. She ventured into the forest alone, where she found the stranger's body lying in a shallow grave. As she stood there, the stranger's spirit appeared before her. He was angry and vengeful, but Emily pleaded with him for forgiveness. She told him how sorry she was for what had happened and begged him to let her family go. In a moment of mercy, the stranger's spirit vanished, and Emily was left alone in the forest, consumed with grief and regret. She returned home to find John waiting for her, and they held each other in a final, heartbreaking embrace. The family never fully recovered from the tragedy. They moved away from Millfield, haunted by the memories of the stranger and the loss of their children. To this day, the house sits abandoned on the edge of the forest, a constant reminder of the tragic horror that took place there.